Hi guys, my name is Taylor Wheeler. This video is about Chinese versus American AI and what I'm witnessing as a professional web designer slash software developer using agents that use these models and what my experience is so far. So simply put, there's a few considerations. We got firstly cost, we've got quality, we've got speed, and we've got vibes, right? That's very important. So I just want to first paint a picture that I used to do everything by hand, and did for many years, which gave me a great understanding of how user interfaces worked, how users came on sites and used the sites, image compression, editing, creating logos, like absolutely the whole myriad, because it's like a one-stop shop. And now I've gone to a space of, well, it's like first ChatGPT came along, that it was just like in browser, copy pasting tokens in and out into whatever you're doing, or just thinking about something. But then agents came along, and as soon as I first used Codex, and I realized, AI becomes really powerful when you give it tools and allow it to autonomously go off. So a lot of the time I was using Claude -- dangerously -- skip -- permissions to run Claude Code in fully autonomous mode, which there was the uplift, that was the magic. But I think what's happened straight away is that these companies in America have realized that selling inference like this is very lucrative. Now, who knows how the books are balancing? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe someone could say in the comments. But the books are balancing in terms of inference cost versus what they're actually charging. I know that obviously the plans are subsidized, but I've always been working on the API. I kind of feel like a bit of a dummy now because apparently people are leveraging the plans to get lots and lots of usage for not a lot of money. So I was doing API charge billing for a long time, and I could justify it because I've got a business, and I used to try and get people to build my sites for me, and I found people in Indonesia, Nepal, for about $200. Tried them out. I'll be honest, it was not presentable, and what did I expect? And this was kind of like one of my first forays into trying to hire people to outsource the work, because I'd done it all myself. And then after I'd invested that money, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Some time's passed, and like obviously did some other things, and then agents came along, and now the same conceptually, if you put in $200, $300, even $500, and you're making $2,500 back, well, that's good, isn't it? That's a really good markup. And so I started running my business like that off Claude Code, using Sonnet. Sometimes I would use Opus and be at the forefront. Obviously Fable came out recently, which is like nightmarishly expensive comparatively, but the quality and the ability is incredible. It's it doesn't seem to be slowing down, the rate of progress, which is a great thing for everybody. Or is it? Who knows? But anyway, so for a good few months while I was getting started, like I was building software with Claude and Codex, so that's OpenAI, that's Claude, Anthropic, and I was kind of going back and forth between these two, and they were really the first ones. And then you had Gemini followed suit, and then their Gemini TUI. Like, I like working in the terminal, just my vibe. Some people like using Cursor, some people like using VS Code or whatever it is. But yeah, essentially I was able to deliver a lot of sites, probably about 5 or 6 sites, using those tools at that markup. Absolutely brilliant. All in the meanwhile, I was actually trying with this little computer here, which is a Mac Studio M3 Ultra, to run local models, because I'd done local inference for a company, and so I was trying to agentically code with local models for ages, and I've done a lot of work with local models for privacy reasons, GDPR reasons, for companies. And I was like, well, look, I'm paying $300 plus per project. What if I tried and got it absolutely free from open source? Now, that gap is kind of big. That gap is like huge. Well, it was huge. This has got 96 gig of VRAM on it, so you can get, I think I was using Coder next, which is an 80 billion parameter model. I'm pretty sure it's mixed with experts, so it's only got maybe 4 billion active parameters. But that is a great coding model locally that you can put into a harness like Pi or Claude Code. I like Pi Agent, that's kind of my thing now. But it works. But the biggest bottleneck is prompt processing speed. So whenever you're doing anything locally, especially agentically, where you're sending lots of different messages back and forth, the prompt processing speed can be longer than the inference speed. So the prompt processing is the first half of injecting your tokens, your messages, the prompts from the harness as well. If you're using Claude Code, it's very thick, whereas you use Pi Agent, it's very efficient and runs a lot faster. So considerations for local. Did it work? No. That's where quality comes in. You use Claude Code, you use like the newest OpenAI models. Yeah, it's down to models. So Sonnet, Fable, you've got GPT 5.6 now, 5.5, all the machinations. That's where you want quality. Is like you want it to be able to produce something from its own, well, this is what I thought, from its own mind or from its own training, that's, pretty good. But as I built up this repertoire and did more and more, I kind of started building these prompts, these prompt packs. And do you know what? I'm now, as I'm recording it, I'll drop a link below. If you want some of my prompts, I'll just make it so you put in your name, email, no spam, anything like that, and it'll send you a link to download these packs. But what I found is there were workflows that I was slowly building. Like every time I do a project, I'd have a sort of prompt that kicked off the website. I'd have a prompt to do the SEO. I have a prompt, like all pre-packaged, so I could just point an agent at it and then run it, and then it would do the thing. And then eventually I wouldn't have to hand prompt anymore. So like my terminal usage ended up being more gathering data, giving the right template. And the way I like to think about it is like lithography, right? You're making a mask to shine light through onto the thing, and zzz, right? And so all I'm trying to do is like, what does that mask look like? Once I've got that mask, I've just got to go get it, paste it into the repo. And so this is what brings me on to Chinese AI now at 8 minutes 56 is, right, between learning to use local, open source, and using the most expensive, there's a gap in there somewhere, right? And then DeepSeek V4 Pro came out. And so I hooked that up to Pi Agent, and I put $20 on it, and I started doing work. Now, that model as a worker is impressively good. It does, like, and I think the thing is like most people are going for like, can the model just generate something? Can it do it in one shot? And that's like deeply flawed, because with all these other workflows that you build up, if you get smart models to make your workflows and then you give that to a worker model to execute, it's not having to think or rely on its training as much. It's just there to get the code right. It's to run through a process. It's to be like, it's to be a good executor. And you don't need frontier models for this. You just don't. And DeepSeek V4 Pro, damn, I used it for like 5 weeks straight. Coded multiple websites, software projects. One I was on $1,000 a month retainer for. One I'm, $2,500 for a website, etc., etc. I started doing very small packages like $149 a month for SEO, £100 a month for SEO, because I've basically automated the process and I've driven the inference cost down to basically about $1 a day. So doing the work cost me about $1 a day. All the value comes from my experience, what I've built up, how I do it. But so now it's almost like Chinese AI is heavily disrupting American AI. And I saw a video about this yesterday, and it had a graph, and it just looked like this. Like, like the fall of American AI and then the rise, because people just aren't going to pay these prices. It's insane. It's an insane amount of money to pay, especially when China is subsidizing it. Now, obviously, you got things like data, right? Big data things, like you're sending data to China, like that's what you got to work with. But in the short term, I make the decision that like that model works for me. I'm totally happy with how I use it, and the cost is so low. So again, on the same kind of project, $2,500. Well, maybe I've spent $5 on inference, and because I've now leaned out my whole design process and I've got it on Rails, you're basically looking at gathering data, having client-facing meetings, understanding the problem, getting that, passing it to an agent, and just running it through a workflow where there's still a human in the loop. I check things. I'm making sure that the code's right, the visual clarity is right. I have to connect things up. There's like tracking I have to connect up. I use resend for emails. Like I have to connect all these things up. So my job's changed slightly, but the results are better. They're faster, and there's more margin. Maybe for the short term, but maybe for the long term. And the margin comes from like being able to solve a painful problem, and that's leads, really. Like, so my website solved the leads problem. So anyway, Chinese versus American AI. I would say stop paying expensive rates unless you use another agent or a model to generate the prompt. You have a very, very good idea of what you're trying to get out, and you're going to get that out in one shot a lot of the time. I don't recommend agentically running, well, like I do, like you might put a task on like Fable in Claude Code and be like, right, I want you to smash this. Fine. It's going to cost though, right? If you've got that money to throw away, fine. But the longer I'm in business, the more I realize, like, you should be optimizing for the lowest cost. It's not about spending loads of money. It's about being the most efficient. And this is one of the biggest efficiency gains I've ever seen in my life in this field of web design, oblique now software, because web apps are just software, websites are just software. And then you've got the idea that software 2.0 is like, now you click a button and you're triggering an AI agent process or an inference call, and you're getting the result back. And that's kind of like the new territory we're in now. So I think China is gonna really win the war. Like, the only other thing that can really change that is having things like these computers. This is the M3 Ultra, like I said, but realistically, it's a RAM problem, right? not everybody can sit and have a terabyte of RAM at home. Not every developer can sit and have a terabyte of RAM. I think I even saw what's his name, Jensen Huang, right? He had the new AI Dell workstations. He's like, yeah, you had to have this sat next to you. Like, fair enough, it had like nearly 980 gigabytes of VRAM. Sweet. You could get the new DeepSeek V4 Flash 0731 onto that, 280 gig. Psh, great. You've got your data sovereignty back. So I think in time, that's what's going to happen. These models' capabilities now, they are, like, we don't need AI to get any better for web design. I don't think. Like, we're there. It's solved. Other things, like, we're now going into different realms. I think software is a lot more complex because it's like kind of like a woven web of very complex things working together, whereas you just got front end a lot of the time with a website. But so that's beautiful, right? If you want to get into web design, I recommend it, right? So I'll show you this. I've got this. This is what I do all my work on, right? And if I just minimize this, you can see. Right, so there you go, terminal window. Right, I've got loads of them open. Terminal window. Right, these are all just different client projects running. Running DeepSeek using, PyAgent, which is just a really lightweight agent, super fast. And then there's like, what you get out of that is, well, you've got a machine that's portable. You can use it anywhere. I've actually got a battery. I don't know where it is. I put it somewhere, but I've got a battery that I put in my car. And I can have power anywhere. That'll stay powered for like 10 charges or something. And then, yeah, you just, with that tool, it's like a guitar. I'm a guitar player, right? It's like I'm able to play agents really well, right? They're portable, lightweight, and I can easily get around on the Mac. It stays on. It doesn't, get weird or anything like that. Not very many bugs. I just wish I got more space on it. That's a consideration. A lot of space. But that's how then you can maximize, and this is the real important key, is maximizing your time spent working in the terminal or working with the agent, however you want to do it. Like I said, I like the terminal. It's vibes for me. But you need to maximize that time. Why? Well, you need to really get a solid grasp of how these models work, what they do, when you tell them to do something, how they do it. There's so many things I could say off the top of my head. Like, you need to spend the time to know these things, and that's where the gap's going to open up, because you're going to get people that, can leverage 100 agents. Even 100 is crazy, right? To do very impactful things. The answer to the question is why, isn't it? It's like, well, why are you doing this? What are you doing this for? Is it life purpose? Are you trying to make money? Are you trying to help people? Like, myriad of things. But with agents, you've got to start by mastering one agent. And then you want to then work across multiple instances of agencies in parallel. So it's like I could load 6 client sites in and then be like running them all off on different things. And you get this parallel compute effect across time where you're really leveraging it highly. And then when you do that enough, and this is kind of where I'm at, is you start realizing like, oh wow, maybe I could orchestrate all the agents, because it's a web dev company. I've got a roster of clients. It's just looking like a CRM kind of thing where like you're gonna have one agent talking to, this project, this project, this project, this project, this project, which has all got its own cheap agent, and it's orchestrating them all. And that's kind of like the next step where I'm at. And I'm trying to work that out because I kind of like seeing every output happening as it goes. I don't want to be blind in this process. But yeah, Chinese AI basically allows you to scale the compute because the cost is lower. Like, even if I'm on Sonnet 4.6 or 4.7 or whatever it is now, 5, right? And I scale that compute, my price is just going through the roof, like absolutely. If I'm saying, like, I spent literally like $3 on one of the days that I was running probably like 5 agents through PyAgent, DeepSeek V4 Pro, building real sites for real money. $3.22 was the inference cost for all of that day. And I can't tell you how many tokens I used, but it was a lot. So that's really it. That's really my perspective. I think short term, China's going to harvest all the data it can, great, and offer cheap services. That allows us to scale compute, get more impact for the short term. And I think eventually then America will wake up and make the hardware. I don't think this pricing is going to last. Something's got to give, right? Like, how can I get all the same value whilst paying near 100x less for the inference? And like, that's the real kicker of this whole conversation, is like actually leveraging AI for real work and getting real results and making real money. And if it's true that you do not need to pay the frontier to get this done, well, there you go. And if it's also true that you can pay $1 a day and get it done, that's a crazy gap. So I will wrap it up there. It's been 22 minutes, but that's my little ramble on American versus Chinese AI. All right, take it easy. I'll see you in the next one.